Naam, mtazamaji, ni siku nyingine tena, siku ya Ijumaa, ikiwa ni tarehe 24 mwezi wa 9 mwaka 2021. Kama kawaida inapofika siku kama hii, saa kama hino, mwendo wa saa 4 hapo kuendelea, huwa tunapata nafasi ya kufanya mazungumzo ya moja kwa moja na wageni tofauti tofauti kutoka sehemu tofauti tofauti na wataalam kutoka nyanja tofauti tofauti. Kama kawaida kwenye ukumbi wetu wa Okoa Mombasa, lengo na madhumuni ni kujaribu kumwelimisha yule mwananchi wa kawaida. Lengo na madhumuni ni kujaribu kufunguana kichwa, kufunguana mawazo. Lengo na madhumuni ni kuhakikisha kwamba Mkenya anajua tatizo liko wapi. Lengo na madhumuni ni kujua Mkenya anachukua jukumu yeye kama Mkenya, wala si kuamuliwa na mtu mwingine ama kupangiwa na watu wachache katika sehemu ama katika sehemu ya ofisi tu ndogo waweze kupangia Wakenya ambao ni zaidi milioni ya 46 ama milioni 50 kwa sasa. Siku ya leo tutakuwa tunazungumzia masala ya deni la serikali kwa upana kabisa. Tujue deni la serikali ni nini, tujue ni nani huwa anadaiwa na serikali, tujue hili deni lalipwa vipi, na pia imefikia kiwango tunaona baadhi ya serikali ama tunaona baadhi ya mataifa inafika kiwango wale wanaowadai wanaweza kuchukua baadhi ya sehemu. Labda utapata viwanja vya ndege, utapata vile sehemu kubwa kubwa, either ports, utapata zinakuwa chini ya baadhi ya wale viongozi ama chini ya baadhi ya yale mataifa ambayo yanadai mataifa yale kwa ujumla. Siku ya leo tutakuwa tunafanya mazungumzo ya moja kwa moja kupitia mitandao almaarufu kama Zoom meeting, na tunaye mgeni ambaye anafahamika kama Daktari Stephen Njaramba. Daktari Stephen Njaramba ataweza kutueleza yeye ni nani, anajihusisha na nini, na yuko katika sehemu gani katika taifa letu la Kenya. Karibu sana mtazamaji, mimi nafahamika kama Ismail Zema. Karibu sana daktari, wasalimie watazamaji wanaokutizama katika taifa letu la Kenya na ulimwengu mzima kwa ujumla, alafu uweze kujitambulisha wewe ni nani.
Asante Ismail. My name is Stephen Njaramba. Utaniruhusu nishanganye hii mambo ya Kiswahili na Kiingereza.
Hamna tatizo daktari.
Tumejikuta hapo.
Hamna tatizo.
Kwa majina mimi naitwa Njaramba Stephen. I'm actually working with Kenyatta University. That's where I lecture economics. My area of specialization is usually public sector economics. Hiyo mambo na masuala ambayo ina deal na matumizi, ufanyikazi wa serikali, generally the public sector performance, revenue raising, including the debt. That's area of my specialization, currently working with Kenyatta University. Yes.
Labda daktari, kwa ufupi tu, wenyewe wanasema tupe ile overview ya madeni katika taifa letu la Kenya, kwa Mkenya aweze kuelewa.
Now, Ismail, we've been talking about Kenya getting into financial, there is what we call financial debt. There is what we call the financial crisis. Currently, we said that Kenya is in financial distress, or mahari tunaweza sema it is now at red lights. Imeanza kuonyesha rangi nyekundu. I don't know whether that's a good Kiswahili. Meaning, anytime we may find ourselves in financial crisis. Now, financial crisis happens in a situation where the government is unable, or any republic is unable to service its debt. Now, in terms of public debt in Kenya, Kenya owes the Kenya public sector. Now, public sector just represent the government, serikali. It owes other individuals, other government, other banks, an amount equivalent to 70%. 70% of public resources, 70% of what we call the GDP. Kiwango yote ya Kenya, once you evaluate in terms of money, Kenya, we are around 10 trillion. 10 trillion. Out of that 10 trillion, 70% is not, does not belong to us. It does not.
Kwa hiyo inamaanisha ni trilioni 7 sasa hivi si zetu kama wa Kenya.
Yes, si zetu. That is what we owe others. We owe others as a republic. Now, out of the 70%, the 70% we call it public debt. And I would want to say that public debt in general is what we call accumulated public deficit or fiscal deficit. Ile situation or ile kiwango where when the government is doing its budget, it has what we call the projected revenue, but the expenditure goes far above the revenues. So that gap is what we call the fiscal gap. Now, that accumulated fiscal gap over time now resorts to what we call public debt. Now, out of that public debt, we have two kind of public debt. We have what we call domestic debt. That is, serikali owes its citizens mali ama pesa. There is what we call foreign debt, meaning that the government owes foreigners, may it be country, may it be bank or individual, it owes them maybe debt. That's what we call foreign debt. Now, the two don't pose similar risk. Haina risk the same. For foreign debt, it's more risky because for you to pay, you have to go through process. It has to go. You cannot just print money, the Kenya shilling, and pay foreign debt. But for Kenya, if you find yourself in a situation you are unable to pay a Kenyan, the government has a capacity through central bank, of course, to print money. But for foreign debt, you can't do that. So the two pose different risk. But in terms of now foreign debt, Kenya, out of the 70%, 36% now of that 70% is foreign debt. In terms of composition, we may say 55% of public debt is owed to foreigners. 55%.
55%.
What that means, Ismail, is that then out of what we have as Kenya, 55% is owned by foreigners. Simply that.
Kile tulichonacho, tuseme 100% ya utajiri wetu ama mali yetu ni 55% sasa hivi inadaiwa na mataifa ya nje. Kwa hiyo inamaanisha sisi wa Kenya tunaishi na 45%.
That's what belongs to us. In terms of, ukiangalia kama binafsi, if you value yourself and you find that ukona mali ya 1 million, you are worth 1 million. Then you find that out of what you have a bank loan of 500,000. Then in terms of net worth, we would say you are worth 500 million. So in that case, sorry.
Daktari, inamaanisha nini kwamba 55%, 55% ya uchumi wetu ama ya mali zetu ama ya utajiri wetu katika taifa letu la Kenya ni deni la mataifa ya nje? Hii inatuweka wapi sisi kama wa Kenya? Je, hii Kenya ni yetu ama ni ya mataifa ya nje?
That's why we always say, what you know, they say that your debtor can always come for you anytime. That means that as Kenya, we are more of a foreigners. In fact, if I may use the colonialism kind of approach, then we will say that we are still owned by foreigners. We are still under the management of foreign countries. Because for you to pay that loan and for you to actually continue having the loan, then you must dance to the tune of the debtors.
Kwa hiyo daktari, mbali pale mwanzo umeanza kusema kwamba tuko kwa ile inaitwa financial district. Mimi nikiweka naweza kusema tuko kwa financial crisis, kwa sababu kama 55% sasa hivi tunakuwa owned na mataifa ya nje, itakuwa tuko ni crisis. Nadhani ni crisis kwa sababu tushakuisha sisi, naweza kusema tushakuisha kama Kenya. Sijui upande wako daktari wasemaje?
No, you know what we are happening, or what is happening in Kenya is that we've managed to manipulate data. I must say, because through research, it has actually been shown that the data currently with us is not the actual data. So by that data that we have, we are able to kind of prove that we are still having the capacity to pay. Bado tuko na hiyo uwezo wa kulipa. But the truth is that we are getting to a position we will have to raise our hand. Tutainua mikono very soon if nothing is done. Because if I may just demonstrate a bit, for you to pay the foreign debt, one, you need to earn foreign currency. For you to earn foreign currency, it means that you are exporting more than you are importing. That is not happening. And we continue to earn or to acquire more debt and more risky debt, because in terms of also the composition of this foreign debt, we have what we call bilateral debt. We have what we call syndicated loans, like Eurobonds, which actually requires a lot of cost in terms of service. So we are getting into a situation where we are acquiring more of these high cost debts. We are reducing in terms of our export, increasing our export. Then we are getting into a situation we'll have to raise our hands. We are unable to pay, and therefore we are calling other countries to come for our rescue. That is when we now say we are in financial crisis, when we raise our hand and the government openly declare is unable to pay. But currently we are cooking data, of course, to show that we still have the capacity to pay. And that's why you say the government is increasing taxation right, left, and center to prove to the international communities that we are able to service our debts, which myself and of course even you know that now we are getting squeezed to a point we cannot even produce a drop.
Daktari umesema kwamba itafika wakati tutainua mikono.
Yes.
What does that mean? Kwamba tutainua mikono, kwamba tutakubali kwamba sasa hivi taifa litakuwa linachukuliwa na mataifa mengine, ama kuna baadhi ya sehemu za taifa letu la Kenya zitakuwa zinakuwa owned ama zinakuwa controlled na mataifa ya nje?
Yes, that of course would depend na the type of loans that we have. As I've already mentioned, we have types of loans. We have what we call a syndicated loan. We have what we call sovereign bonds. We also have bilateral loans. So the amount of what we may call commercial loan, let me use the term commercial. Ile loan ambayo iko na security. And these loans also are the loans with high cost in terms of servicing. And these loans are also risky in the sense that if the debtors, those that have actually given the loans, notice a sign that Kenya is unable to pay, they have the capacity to recall their loan immediately. So the loan is given, but it is still also subject to the condition of the economy. If they fall in a fight that Kenya is becoming risky, according to the arrangement of those commercial loans, is that they can recall the loan immediately. And that's why I would actually want to say that last year, Kenya actually never went for full kind of debt write-off. They didn't, because that would actually have sent bad signal to the debtor. And by that, they would have actually recorded the loans, now putting the country into a position or outright financial crisis, because they would not pay. They will not pay. So these commercial loans have what we are calling collaterals. You may have heard Mombasa Port could be one of them. Now, SGR, I don't know whether you already know it doesn't belong to Kenya. That's why even the president, when he wants the fare, the price of the fare that is paid, it's called the Nauri, the one you pay to SGR. Even when he wanted it reduced, he negotiated, he lobbied the Chinese, because it does not belong to us. It has already been taken over for a period until Kenya is able to pay. It is silent, of course. Nobody is telling us that SGR is not a Kenyan asset.
Daktari, turudi hapa ambapo umezungumzia swala mpaka umemgusia rais kwamba wakati wa kutaka nauli ya SGR ipunguzwe ilibidi alobi, na pia ilikuwa ni labda pengine taifa la China liweze kukubali kama kweli nauli itashuka ama nauli itapanda. Kwa hiyo kiufupi tuseme kwamba SGR haiko mikononi mwa Kenya tayari.
Kabisa, that's what I mean. Haiko. That's why even the president cannot just give a directive. Must lobby, must beg. And you know, any money that that SGR is raising, none of it is retained or remain in Kenya. Now, I want to tell you that one more risk in that is that if SGR, for example, makes let's say 1 billion in a month, that money then has to be converted to foreign currency and then get repatriated to China. So it has a double tragedy, that our income get exported, and then again that income has to be to rain on foreign reserves. And this foreign reserve we don't have. We don't have this foreign reserve because we can only have it if we are exporting and exporting more. And then since we don't have, what do? We borrow. We are borrowing foreign reserve for Chinese, once they make income in Kenya, to access and repatriate their income to their country. That's one of the main risks. And that's what will make us, yes, please.
Daktari, tukibaki hapo, nakumbuka vuguvugu hili la Okoa Mombasa limekuwa mstari wa mbele kulizungumzia swala hili la SGR kwa kina sana, na kumekuwa hadi na maandamano katika maeneo haya ya pwani kupinga swala hili la SGR. Kumekuwa hadi na kesi kotini kutaka ule mkataba uliowekwa wa SGR uwekwe wazi, lakini hadi kufikia sasa mambo kama haya hayajitokeza. Hadi kufikia sasa serikali imekataa kuweka wazi mkataba ambao uliwekwa wa SGR. Swala kama hili, unadhani kuna kitu gani fiche hasa kwa jambo kama hili kuendelea, daktari?
Now, there was a time I really wanted that data myself about the SGR. What was the initial plan? Is it that there is a miss of the target, or was there poor planning? Then again, who financed the SGR, by how much, what were the agreement? And I will tell you that I went through and I was told that it is becoming a security issue. It's a security matters. Of course, the Constitution is very clear. The law that actually guides in terms of public information pertaining this access to public debt. They should be clear and available for anybody that wants to interrogate to do that. But currently we don't have that information. Now, it is only left for us then to speculate that something is not straight. One is that one thing I will tell you and about SGR is that this is not that money came into Kenya. The government of Kenya went to Chinese, wanted the SGR done. The valuation was done. Initial valuation which was coming, I think it was around 316 billion. It was done. Out of that, no money was actually given to Kenya for the construction of the same. Chinese supplied everything. You can imagine is a situation where the Chinese decided to look for material in their country, decided to look for labor, and actually did. I think that's the main problem that we had when it comes to Kenya SGR. So the cost is just too much. The exportation of income is just too much. So in simple terms, the information pertaining the acquisition of SGR, that is the loan that went to SGR, is not available to us as researchers. I think it is also not available to you, of course, civil society, and that would not mean that it's not available to public. And this is against the law. I think somebody needs to go to court. I think for me, because court should interpret the law and of course demand that the law get implemented.
Nadhani swala la koti ni swala ambalo okoa na mashirika tofauti wameweza kulifuatilia, wamekuwa pia wakielekea kotini kuweza kulizungumzia swala kama hili, lakini hadi kufikia sasa bado naweza kusema kwamba hakujatokea mwongozo mwafaka, mwongozo wa kiwaziwazi, kwa sababu mahakama imewahi mpaka kupeana amri kwamba pengine swala kama lile ama pengine ile mkataba uweze kuwekwa wazi, lakini hadi kufikia sasa serikali bado imedinda kuweza kuweka wazi kitu kama hicho.
Yes, Ismail, you can now read the frustration. It's good that you also saw that, of course, the civil society, they've been doing good work, of course, trying to fight for the public, which is a commendable thing. But now I think also the public should come in and demand that the government follow the law. Because the law, if it's not followed, I don't understand why I should myself get forced. Ikiwa serikali haifuatilii sheria, why should I follow the law myself? I think the public should come out and demand then that if the government cannot follow the law, let all of us then not follow the law.
Na itakuwa sasa serikali gani? Itakuwa inaongozwa vipi hiyo? Kama kila mmoja hatapata sheria.
Yeah, because you see, anytime I go, like for example, if I don't pay tax, KRA will be on me using the law.
That's true.
Now, if the government is not following the law, why is it forcing? In fact, I should go to court and then say that the same government accusing me is not following the law, and I should be acquitted on that basis.
So, Daktari, do you think it's high time now Kenyans waweze kurise na unite, maybe kuweza kuja strongly condemn against all these issues ambazo zina happen katika taifa letu la Kenya? Ama unaona time bado?
No, it is the high time. Otherwise, we either unite to defend our country, all of us will be destroyed. All of us will be destroyed. And it is happening by what we are seeing through public debt. Hii madeni imekuwa mingi, as we are saying. All of us are paying, and you can see how we are getting squeezed. Now, the government cannot dare reduce the taxation on petrol products. petroleum product because it knows that it will go against international community. It's not because it has the will to maintain that high tax, but it is it will go against. You can imagine it is forced by IMF. It is forced by IMF. IMF has the capacity to force because Kenya owed them. So if we continue this way, and I would remind you, Ismail, that when the NAC government came to power, that is the year 2003.
Yeah.
We were highly indebted, though not like the way we are now. And remember, the first budget was done, a balanced budget with no foreign component in it. Within over about 3 times, the economy was able to, over 3 years, the economy was able to hit a very high level of growth. So for me, I think we need to demand that we no longer require this foreign debt. And Ismail, I will tell you for sure, from where I stand, we don't require it. We don't require this debt.
Dakika mtazamaji zikiwa zimekatika takriban 37, daktari amesema either we Kenyans tuje pamoja, we unite, or all of us tuwe tunakuwa destroyed. Hivi ndio madaktari ameweza kusema ni lazima wa Kenya either tuje pamoja ama tuone Kenya ikiwa imesambaratika katika hali ambayo si ya kawaida. Dakika ndio hizo zinazidi kuyoyoma. Mtazamaji, una nafasi ya kuweza kuuliza swali, una nafasi ya kuweza kufuatilia mahojiano yetu ya moja kwa moja katika ukumbi wetu wa Okoa Mombasa Facebook Live, ambapo tunaweza kuzungumza naye Daktari Stephen Njaramba ambaye ni mhadhiri katika Chuo Kikuu cha Kenyatta katika masuala mazima ya uchumi, kiufupi, biashara na hali ya kiuchumi katika taifa letu la Kenya kwa ujumla. Niweze kufika katika ama kupitia katika ukurasa wetu wa Facebook, daktari, ukinipa ruhusa tuweze kuangalia tu wale wa Kenya ambao wameweza kutoa maoni yao. Kuna mmoja hapa anaitwa Charles Njenga, anasema a good and timely engagement for all Kenyans to be part of us. Asante sana Charles. Amekuja Ondiek Matunda, anasema our leaders have studied us and there is no revolution in Kenya. Over borrowing, high fuel prices, and Kenya just lamenting. Kenya is a good haven for corrupt leaders. Ondieki, sijui daktari unazungumziaje haya matamshi ya Ondieki? Amesema kwamba leaders have studied us and there is no revolution in Kenya, over borrowing, high fuel prices, and Kenya just lamenting. Kenya is a good haven of corrupt leaders. Is it true? Ama sisi unajua inaweza kuwa tunalaumu wanasiasa wafisadi, huenda pia sisi wa Kenya ni wafisadi kwa njia moja ama nyingine. Daktari, wasemaje?
Yes, I agree with Charles. All of us, I think we have embraced corruption. That one we have to agree. All of us have embraced corruption. And even this corruption is the reason why we are borrowing. It is the reason why we are borrowing. You know, I remember at one point, I think during the Moi regime, Moi the president, the late, there was a time we analyzed the concept of corruption and said that as long as the corruption, these resources at least moving within the same economy, will not have much problem. It would only have a problem of maybe a resource distribution. But now we've gone to a point where our leaders have to access foreign kind of loans. A production is done by foreigner. Like, I'm sorry, I have to mention in regards to what Chaza said. I came to Mombasa recently, and I was just surprised by the amount of infrastructure work that is there. I've lived in Mombasa. I think I lived in Mombasa for 5 years at one point. And the amount of money that was circulating, of course, based on the activities that were there. And there were no infrastructure development to the amount we have currently. But you find that I was able to note clearly that there is no circulation of money in Mombasa. That actually told me that what we are having is that this infrastructures implementation is being done by foreigners. Two is that the inputs that goes to the infrastructures are not locally sourced. And what you have therefore is income from Mombasa getting exported, all of it. So you earn 1 million, it all goes out. It does not circulate within the economy. So that corruption, I call it corruption by the fact that why should it be implemented? Why are those roads being implemented by outsider? Why are those roads sourcing metal bars, cement, mention everything? Why is it coming from out? Why don't you just maybe task the domestic producer to produce the same? And you find...
Daktari, tukizungumzia hapo nataka kugusia swala kama swala hili la SGR sasa hivi. Tumekuwa tukiona yale yanayojiri sasa hivi na tumeona wapwani, naweza kiupande wangu nahisi wapwani ndio wanaumia zaidi kwa sababu hili ni deni ambalo lilichukuliwa na serikali, lakini utapata wapwani ndio wanaumia zaidi kuliko wananchi wa sehemu nyingine, kwa sababu sisi ndio tunahisi tumefinywa sana, na pia sisi utapata maisha yamekuwa magumu zaidi kuliko sehemu zingine. Unadhani haya madeni pia nayo yanalenga sehemu ama ni madeni ya taifa kwa ujumla?
No, I think that then you need to, if you talk about that, watu wa Mombasa ndio wanaumia zaidi. Ukisema hivyo, because even where I come from, we are not better off. I wouldn't say we are better off. But of course, probably what you are saying is true. That one I have not verified. But there is kind of a general problem. So madeni, and I was bringing that concept based on what Charles has actually mentioned, the concept of corruption. Debts, public debt is not a bad thing. Actually, a debt should be acquired, and the same for the reason it was acquired, start paying it and increase even the public sector revenue. I don't know how to put that one better, like that if you acquire a loan, that loan, the purpose at which it was raised should then assist in paying the loan, and on top of it, increase public or the government revenue.
Kwa kiufupi kama mfano unatuzungumzie, tumechukua mkopo wa kujenga SGR kuanzia Mombasa hadi Naivasha. Kwa kiufupi ilikuwa SGR iweze kujilipia deni na iweze kufaidisha pia serikali kwa ujumla, lakini sasa haiwi hivyo.
Haiko hivyo. Because, and the answer I want to say, I want to relate with what Charles has said, because of corruption. Corruption in between has made it. Otherwise, for me, it was a good project. It was a good project, which would have made now Mombasa and its environs to have more resources, more income because of increased activities. And from increased activities, you pay tax without increasing tax rate. So the government is able now to acquire more tax based on increased income. Two is that the SGR itself ought to have actually managed to pay itself without having, we have levy. You find that the general payment of debts, SGR we don't pay. In fact, SGR we gave out the entire project to Chinese, but don't forget that then they also charge for them to pay. They charge all the activities in the port of Mombasa. They charge the user of the railway. So in the process, then all of us are paying and are paying dearly. So in that case, the corruption concept has contributed to one, highly exaggerated cost of projects. Two, of course, mismanaged implementation ways in the projects. Yes.
Kuna mwingine hapa anajulikana kama, tunajaribu kupitia jumbe kabla turudi katika ukurasa wetu wa maswali. Daktari anaitwa Ubsuley asema, what do we do as citizens to control our government in incurring this debt? Ameweza kuuliza swali, niweza kulichanganya na la Prince Tyrus hapa pia. Asema, daktari, superpower countries have the highest debt but the living standard are better than us. What is the disconnect? What is it, that disconnect? Swala la Prince Tyrus na Ubs, daktari, tuweze kuyagusia, labda pengine yanakili pahali ili uweze kuyajibu kwa pamoja. Ubs pia amerudi tena, amesema boycotting tax payment by us all is the solution. Sijui kama pia hilo daktari unaweza kuligusia. Unaona kuna haja ya Wakenya kutolipa ushuru, waamue tu hatulipi ushuru, tuishi tu Kenya ya kila Mkenya kivyake vyake. Kama rais halipi ushuru, waziri halipi ushuru, na mimi Mkenya wa kawaida pia nikienda dukani nisilipe ushuru, ama ni mshahara wangu kule, mshahara mdogo ambao nakatwa, niseme nisikatwe. Kuna tena, the frustration are challenging all of us. What are we waiting for? Nadhani huyu ana mawazo mengine mazito. Asante. Kuna mwingine hapa daktari, katika kumbi kama hizi kuna mambo mengi ambayo yanatokea. Kuna mmoja hapa anaitwa Clinton Mtigamu. Pia ile hali ya ugumu wa maisha ameweza pia kusema kwamba ana hali ngumu. Anasema mtoto wake pia kupata chakula, hawezi kupata chakula. Amefikia kiwango, ameweka namba yake ya simu, pia tumsaidie angalau mtoto wake apate japo chakula cha leo. Huo ndio mtihani ambao daktari tunapitia. Labda uweze kujibu haya maswali ambayo yameweza kuulizwa na watazamaji wetu, ili nao wapate faida ya yale mazungumzo na wahisi kama ambaye wakopata ubasi kwenye haya mazungumzo, daktari.
Asante Smart. Of course, starting from the last, situation, finding ourselves in a situation we can't feed our country. That one must stop, because if a person is not a disabled person, then the economy should give a platform where everyone is productive and is able, therefore, to raise income for the family. Now, what we are headed for, as I was saying, we are getting to a situation we may raise our hands because of non-productivity of our economy. Everything that we are doing, consuming, including toothpick, tissue papers, these ones are imported. That would mean, therefore, even the little that we are raising up has to be exported, because the moment you import, it means that you have no income as a country. That's the situation we are finding ourselves, and therefore the need to start having to borrow and to beg in order even to feed our family. A very pathetic situation, and I think all of us then should rise against that. Now, there was this question about why some countries are highly indebted, especially
from Prince Tyrus. Yeah.
Yes, and these countries are highly in terms of income level, and yet they don't get themselves into the situation that we are in. Now, I want to tell you that a country, there are two types of country. There is that country we call high income country and the low income country. In terms of their currency, their currencies, we have what we call convertible currencies and non-convertible currency. Now, Kenya shilling is a non-convertible currency. China, for example, or if we look at Japan, I think that one was cited by the president sometimes back, which owe its republic over 200% in terms of public debt. Now, the only thing that he did not tell us is that that debt is domestically owned. And that's why when I was started, I said, in terms of debt, we have domestic debt and foreign debt. Foreign debt is the one that poses a risk because you have to convert the currency through export, because you have to earn the foreign currency first before you even able to pay. So these developed countries, they use the debt not to raise revenue, but to stabilize their economy. They do not use public debt as a way of revenue raising. They use public debt as a way of stabilizing. So they borrow, the moment they realize that the economy is probably going to a situation of high inflation, they borrow their public money. It's like they draw back or draw out their public money from the public. And in that case, then, anytime they would actually get into a situation where the country would want more money, they just release it from their central banks. They have it. But now in Kenya, we don't owe public, we don't owe Kenya in terms of Kenya shillings. We owe in terms of foreign currency, which you cannot print. So that's the difference. So in terms, even if they owe 1,000%, it is still stable because the currency they have is just notes that they are using in order to stabilize the economy. In Kenya, we are trying to raise revenue, which is the wrong focus, in my view. Now, the other question was, of course, what we need to do to get away from this public debt. What we need to do is that first we have to stop further foreign borrowing. I think that the first step.
Daktari, we will have to stop. I think it's not sisi wananchi wa kawaida wenye tunachukua mikopo. Ni serikali. Yes, serikali ni sisi, but sio sisi as kama inavyozungumzwa. Kuna wale wenye uwezo wa kufanya haya mambo. Ni sasa kama ni kuweza kusimamisha kuchukua hii mikopo, tufanyeje tuweze kusimamisha?
Then you see, at the end of the day, we will have to pay. It's not the government that will pay, it is us that will pay.
Really?
And how to stop further borrowing is, first of all, we need to believe in ourselves. We need to believe in ourselves. So for further borrowing, then we must, to stop further borrowing, then we must first stop this increased imports. I think the only reason you need foreign currency, Ismail, is because you need a foreign product. Imagine, the only reason you need to borrow from IMF, the only reason you need to raise Eurobond is that you need to have reserves in the central bank for you to continually pay imports. So if you reduce the demand for imports, you reduce the demand for foreign debt. So by doing so, then that's why I was saying all that is produced domestically need to be reduced in terms of importation. This, in terms of infrastructures we have, the development in infrastructure, this cement should not be imported. We have Mombasa cement there and so many others. Why should you not task them to produce cement that you need? What is that you are missing? This metal bus, why don't we have Kenya producing, and the input is still part of the country? You see in the coast, I think is the main area where you export soil. You export soil, then you import metal bars. What comes? I don't know what is what you extract there in Taita. There are a lot of lorries going to Mombasa and they are exporting soil, which is actually full of iron ore. which this should actually be, they export that, then metal bars. If you look at the import bill in Kenya, a lot of it, I think 30% is full of metal bars. But
I think even here in Kwale kuna export inafanyika. Ya inaitwa kuna madini based titanium.
Yeah, you see the amount you gain about 2 billion per financial year in that export. Then you have almost 400 billion in terms of import of the same. It doesn't make sense. So in this case, you must, in fact, what to do is that we must reduce to the minimum possible importations.
Asante daktari, daktari, dakika zinazidi kuyoyoma, 57 zimekatika baada ya saa 4. Maswali bado ni mengi yale ambayo yako katika upande wangu, na pia nikitizama katika mtandao hapa naona watu wanauliza maswali mengi na lazima angalau kwa haraka haraka tuweze kuyapitia, lakini nije tu kwa swali langu hapa daktari, kiufahamu wako na kiutaaluma yako wewe kama daktari na kama mhadhiri katika chuo kikuu, uweze kutueleza, je, unaona madeni haya kwa mwananchi wa kawaida, haya madeni ambayo yanawekwa tunayaomba serikali inaweza kuchukua katika mataifa ya nje, kwa mwananchi wa kawaida yana faida gani? Na je, yamemsaidia kweli yule Wanjiku ambaye yuko mashinani, yule Amina Fatuma ambaye yuko kule mashinani kabisa, Kirinyaga ndani kabisa, kule sehemu ya Turukana ndani kabisa, kule sehemu ya Baringo ndani, kule sehemu ya Mumias kule ndani kabisa, ama Kisumu ndani kabisa. Je, yameweza kumfaidi kisawasawa madeni kama haya daktari?
Now, the purpose of public debt, and more so foreign debt, is to bridge, kushikanisha, bridging the gap between the available domestic resources and the required resources. So itakuwa profitable, even it's just the way an individual would borrow. You borrow in order that over time, then you have more resources that can be used to pay the debts and of course increase your income. So if it has not done that, then it is not profitable. So in this case, the Kenya foreign debt, I would only say that because a lot of it, remember, it's not bringing in capital that we don't have. It is what we call appropriation in aid. It is most of this public debt we have, other than Eurobond, is we just access foreign goods, and they come in terms of goods and the services, but not in form of cash. So I would say that it has not been profitable. In fact, 80% of this foreign debt is not necessary. That's what I'm saying. It's not necessary. It's debt that we can avoid. And then even in terms of its usage, it has not been that optimal. So it is not profitable, to answer your question directly. Kwa kiwango ya 80%, it has not been profitable for the country. Now, when it comes to individuals, to the point of Wajiko, now referring to citizen, you know, it is supposed to actually be profitable by the fact that it becomes easier to maybe to carry out what we may call day-to-day activity in terms of movement, in terms of access to education, in terms of access to health, which myself and you know, it has become even more expensive. So I would say that it is only Wajiko has only been involved when it comes to payment. When it comes to benefit, there has been none.
Haya, msikilizaji, umeweza kusikia kwamba wewe haujafaidika na lolote na madeni ya serikali. Itakuwa ni changamoto kwa wewe mtazamaji kuweza kukaa tunakuona hali iko kawaida. mambo yanazidi kuwa magumu kila uchao, kama nilivyosoma pale awali katika ukurasa wetu wa Facebook. Kuna mmoja tu amekosa kumpatia mtoto wake chakula cha asubuhi na ama kuweza kumpatia chakula, na amefikia kiwango cha kwamba ameona asificha aibu yake, aweke namba yake wazi wazi ili aweze yoyote mwenye kuweza kumsaidia aweze kumsaidia. Hii ni hali ambayo imempata yeye, ndugu yetu anafahamika kama Clinton, lakini kesho itakuwa ni mimi na wewe. Daktari, tuweze kuendelea na maswali. Kuna Otieno Obiero hapa amesema SGR has made a loss of more than 20% this year. What is the implication of this to our national debt, given the fact that the Chinese will manage it up to 10 years after inception? Hilo ni swali kutoka kwa Otieno Obiero. Kuna Ondiek Matunda tena amerudi anasema, in Kenya it is impossible to evade paying taxes because taxes are incorporated in almost all items save for those who are employed. Kwa hiyo inamaanisha hata yoyote lazima atalipa ushuru. Kuna Mesh Abdul Razak ameweza kuuliza, daktari ameweza kuuliza swali, amesema, will Ruto's bottom up economy rescue us? I see it as horsey. As an expert, what is your opinion? Kama mtaalam talizungumzia hilo swala la bottom up approach. Alafu pia kuna Eid Abdallah amesema, you are right, wrong focus. Mesha amerudi tena. Asante. Hapa ni ameweza tu kupongeza kipindi Mesha Abdul. Labda uweze kugusia masuala kama haya ambayo yameweza kuulizwa kama na watu wawili watatu, masuala ya bottom up approach. Kuna hilo swala la Otieno ameweza kuzungumzia 20% SGR na miaka 10 sasa hivi. Hali itakuwa vipi daktari?
Allow me to first of all look at the SGR case and the loss. That's actually a signal that you are headed for the increment in terms of fare and the transportation cost. Of course, because this one is not a loss to Kenyan government, it's a loss to a foreigner or a foreign company that is managing the SGR. So what they are telling you, we cannot continue running business as usual. We are going to review the prices upwards. Now, with the government, of course, enforcing use of SGR, then that could actually be a problem ahead. So in this case, I'm just speculating that what we may actually fight along the way, and why these are private company anyway making a loss, why should it concern us? But it should concern us by the fact that this announcement means that they are going not to run business as usual. That's my prediction. Now, of course, we may not all manage to fail to pay tax. I remember also, I'm also a civil servant. I may not dwell much on how to do it, but some countries have managed. They have managed, of course, and the moment we are forced to subsistence production, I think we have a problem with the people managing the government, because the moment we now are pushed to subsistence production, remember that the system of production, which is not formal, and therefore you're not paying tax. Majority of us now, if you look at where I come from, now I'm growing my own sukuma wiki. I'm growing my own maize now, not for commercial purpose, for my own use. And I will tell you that I've seen a number of middle income individuals resorting to subsistence production. Now you are killing the economy, and no wonder the total public revenue is on the nosedive. Another mechanism then has to be found, like fuel, which you cannot avoid paying tax. Pay as you earn. I've seen people resigning to go and just take care of chicken. So there is a possibility, and there's a number of countries have managed by just avoiding being slave in this formal system. I call them slavery system because it makes you a capture or captive of public sector or government, if I may say. So it is not possible to avoid taxation, but it's possible to avoid sectors that are taxed. But this one I may not advocate. Remember, it's only a situation where we are telling the government, enough is enough. We need now to sit down and talk, or you're no longer going to squeeze anything from us. Now, for bottom-up approach, allow me not to comment on that. That's political area, and you know, we are more on professional kind of approach to issues. And to me, the bottom-up approach, the non-bottom-up approach, or top-down approach, these are just political statements because they are done by politicians, the same people we've been having. The moment we sit down as normal citizens and reason as people who are suffering, the earlier we do that, the better.
Asante sana daktari, dakika ndio hizo zinazidi kuyoyoma, maswali yanazidi kumiminika hapa. Kuna swali hapa limeweza kuulizwa daktari na limeulizwa kwako. Ameuliza Waru hapa, anasema kwamba sasa hivi tuko katika janga la corona na kila mmoja anajua yanayojiri katika mataifa tofauti, katika ulimwengu mzima kwa ujumla, na serikali ya Kenya ilifika kiwango ikaweza kuchukua mikopo. Tumeona yale yaliyojiri katika ofisi tofauti tofauti, watu wakitajwa kwamba wamekula pesa, watu vitu ambavyo vimenunuliwa na havijaonekana muhimu wake. Labda kwa wakati huu wa COVID-19, deni ambalo impact ya COVID-19 na hii hali ya madeni, daktari, itakuwaje ama iko vipi?
You know, to me, COVID-19 came even to save the Republic of Kenya. To me, it has actually not been done. We would have been gone were it not for COVID. COVID has actually managed the public, the Kenya government to seek for even some relief for further. You remember, Ismail, I don't know how old you are. You know, we went up to 90, still blaming the colonial for the problems we were experiencing. 90s, I think we just stopped recently from blaming colonial government for the problem we were experiencing. So before COVID, we had the problems of economy. We already had the problem. So once COVID came, it gave us the opportunity now to borrow further, or a platform to argue a case for borrowing. Of course, notwithstanding the fact that a number of genuine production have been affected, genuine producers have been affected, and more so, if you look at Mombasa, based on the maybe the sector of tourism, due to restriction in movements. We have had, due to the period we had a lockdown, a number of producers not actually producing. So, and that again, what I would say that they are affected. In fact, the economy performance, if you look at the performance per last year and part of this year, it has gone to around -2%. That means that even the size of the economy, the GDP, has contracted. So I would actually say that it will have two main effects. One is that, of course, we have accumulated more debts. Two is that even the capacity to pay the same debt, including the old one, has actually even reduced. So it is just propagating more the problem that we already have. So along the way, of course, it's a good way. We will always argue the only reason that we are unable to pay is not because of mismanagement of the economy, which we all know it is the case, but we will actually now blame COVID. The problem we are experiencing as the government is due to COVID. That will be now the next statement for next year, for a number of years to come. So to me, it's a good for the government. It's a good thing for the government. Of course, for producer, it has really affected. A number of companies have shut down. A number of workers have lost their livelihoods. So I think to individuals, a number of individuals have been affected. The education system, which I say I still have no understanding where it was affected. Maybe in terms of program, in terms of it generating knowledge, I don't think there is any change. Yeah? I'm not saying it is that poor, but I'm actually just admitting the fact that there could have been no much of an effect. But in terms of livelihood, we may take a long time to recover.
Daktari, kuna wengi wanauzidi kuzungumza. Kuna haya masuala mawili ningependa kuyagusia pia kuhusiana na katiba yetu ya Kenya. Katiba imempa nafasi ya uwajibikaji, ama kuna kitu kinajulikana kama public participation katika kila jambo. Serikali haifai kufanya kitu bila kuhusisha wananchi kuweza kutoa maoni yao. Labda wewe kama daktari na mtaalam katika masala ya sekta hii ya fedha na masala ya kiuchumi, je, serikali huwa inampa mwananchi nafasi ya kuweza kuyajadili masuala kama haya? Na lengine, je, wanasiasa wetu wamechangia vipi? Hao ni wabunge wote hao, wamechangia vipi swala hili la deni la taifa letu la Kenya? Je, wamechangia kwa njia wao pia wamekuwa chanzo cha deni kuongezeka katika taifa letu la Kenya, ama vipi kwako daktari?
Kuhusisha wananchi in terms of what we call the public participation. Of course, this was entrenched in the Constitution with the sole motive that the public should make a decision on matters to do with public expenditure, public finance, because the money that is used, the resources that are used belong to them. That's why it was put there in the Constitution. Now, however, a gap exists that as much as there will be public participation, at what level do you then conclude it actually was useful? Because nowadays we have a public participation for the sake of it, for the sake of conforming to the law, but not to the interest or to the spirit of the same law. So I think, and I agree that there seems to be a need for a review, such that if I gave out a view and it happened that it was a popular view, how do we make sure it was incorporated? How do we make sure it was captured as the interest of the public during the public participation? I think there remain a gap, and politicians, our government included, are heavily exploiting that gap. Now, on the case of our members of parliament, in terms of facilitating, I would say that they have well facilitated the problem we are experiencing. Remember, in Kenya, again, by use of law, they are the body that are mandated in terms of allocation of resources. They are also mandated in terms of oversighting the use of the same resources. They are also mandated to make the central government accountable to the citizen, because these politicians, these members of parliament, senators, and all that, they are representative. We call ourselves a representative democracy, whereby the ones that we have elected go and therefore talk on our behalf. However, that does not happen. They go there, they are able to follow their own interest, and the situation is as we have, where now the parliament and the executive are one and the same thing. What the executive want will go in parliament. what Parliament want will go out to executive. And that you find ourselves in what we are now, where as public is crying because of high prices of fuel, Parliament is equally crying. I don't know whether they are crying, I should put in quotes, because they are the one who brought us in this situation. And otherwise, if they wanted, and if they want, even not only if they wanted, if they want, they can solve any economic issues that we're having, because it is their mandate. So they are the one who brought us into the situation we are in.
Kuna swali hapa daktari, naona muda umekamilika, lakini tuweze kujipitia hapa maswali mawili matatu. Ameweza kuuliza hapa Kolo anasema, should President Uhuru Kenyatta be jailed for running down the economy?
He should be jailed by the, we have the decision, jailing. You cannot, of course, given the constitution and the law in Kenya, you cannot again what he has done by any era through omission and commission, that include running down the economy. You cannot take it to court. I think by that it is not possible to jail, but I think all of us need to make him accountable, because we are the financial.
So meaning even after his tenure hawezi kupelekwa mahakamani baada ya yeye kumaliza miaka yake hii 10, akienda nyumbani kupumzika, maana Mkenya anaweza kujitokeza na akaweza kumshtaki aliyekuwa rais wa taifa la Kenya kwa kuweza kuangusha uchumi wa taifa la Kenya?
No, I'm not an expert of law, but in terms of management of the economy, whether he's mismanaged, that I think, and I believe that's what we usually call the era of omission and commission, which is not in any way, and he's not answerable as the president. He's not answerable on that. But the other issues that we have already had from court, which personally can be liable. But I don't think economic mismanagement is one of the areas that you can accuse him, even after.
Labda kumalizia, Daktari Stephen Njaramba, kutoka katika mhadhiri kutoka katika chuo kikuu cha Kenyatta, labda kwa upande wako kama mtaalam sasa wa masuala haya, wewe kama expert katika masuala haya ya kiuchumi, ni njia gani tunaweza kufanya sasa hivi angalau kuokoa hii hali ya madeni katika taifa letu la Kenya, na pia taifa linaweza kufanyaje kuhakikisha kwamba hali hii inaweza kudhibitiwa, na kundi ama vuguvugu hili la kwa Mombasa pia linaweza kufanya vipi kuhakikisha kwamba mwananchi wa kawaida anaweza kujua mambo kama haya na kuweza kuhakikisha kwamba anaweza kuwajibika katika kupambana na swala hili la madeni yasiyotakana katika taifa letu la Kenya? Daktari.
Now, where I come from, we say you either get united. You can only, an army that is united, an army that is united. I'm looking at the question you've asked last maybe as Huri or Kwa Mombasa, you need to unite with others. If you don't see things the same direction, then your goose is as well as cooked. Now, two, how do we move out if we have proper motives? Let's assume that we all mean good things, mean good to the Republic of Kenya. That is government involved, combined with the wananchi. As I said and I stated, one of the methods is that we must stop importation. I mean, not stop, but reduce. Now, let me talk about an economy. An economy can be productive or unproductive. However, it is unproductive, but still consuming. So we have an economy that is unproductive, but consuming. So what we are consuming what are we consuming? We are consuming imported goods. I've mentioned to you that, and I'm sure you know from side of Mombasa, everything, toothpicks, tissue papers, almost even waste we import. We are importing everything. And I said that the moment you do that, you do not only need to borrow to pay for that, you also have to work further to pay. So what you are doing is that you export income. You give your income to other countries. So we need to get to a point where we now focus on the productivity of our economy. And this should actually be more so on how to reduce importations and therefore demand less of foreign debts. By doing that, that will be the first stop. I mean, the first way to stop further aggregation of the problem that we are facing. Then the number two, then we need to now invest in the domestic productivity sector. This is agriculture, tourism. We need livestock keeping, which is also part of agriculture. We need to focus on our potential and then invest in that sector or the potentially productive sector in our economy, and then talk about value addition in these sectors. And by doing that, in less than 5 years, we'll be there.
Sawa daktari, maybe your parting shot kwa Wakenya wote kwa jumla tukikamilisha.
Yeah, my parting shot is that we all need to think together. We all need to accept we are in the once there is a problem, economic problem, all of us get into it. Let's avoid politics and focus to the actual problem facing Kenyans, and then ask and demand accountability to those that we give the mandate to manage our economy. Thank you so much.
Asante sana daktari. Kauli ya mwisho daktari ni kwamba ni jukumu letu sisi wa Kenya kuweza kusimama na kuweza kuwaeka katika kitimoto wale viongozi ambao tunaweka mamlakani katika masuala mazima ya taifa letu la Kenya. Asante sana daktari kwa kuweza kuzungumza na sisi katika ukumbi wetu huko Mombasa. Tunakutakia kila laheri katika shughuli zako za kawaida. Tunakutakia kila laheri katika kuendeleza uchumi wa taifa. Tunasema asante sana sisi kama Okoa Mombasa katika eneo hili la Mombasa. Tunakutakia kila laheri daktari.
Asante sana.
Kufikia hapo mtazamaji, asante sana. Kufikia hapo mtazamaji, tunakamilisha mahojiano ya siku ya leo. Kumbuke siku ya leo tulikuwa tunazungumza naye Daktari Stephen Njaramba, mhadhiri katika Chuo Kikuu cha Kenyatta, tukizungumzia masuala mazima ya uchumi wa taifa letu la Kenya, hali ilivyo, taswira kamili ilivyo. Ningependa kupeana shukrani zangu kwa wasimamizi wenzangu, kwa wasaidizi wenzangu, fundi wa mitambo ndugu yangu Cornel, pamoja na dadangu Rachel Juma, pamoja na Uba Suleiman, kwa kuweza kufanikisha matangazo haya ya moja kwa moja, na wale ambao wako katika sehemu tofauti tofauti ambao wamechangia njia moja ama kwa njia moja ama nyingine, watazamaji, wasikilizaji, na wale ambao wametuma jumbe zao. Tunawatakia kila laheri, lakini kama alivyosema daktari, ni jukumu letu kuhakikisha kwamba wale ambao tuliweka kwenye mamlaka tunaweka katika kitimoto cha kuhakikisha kwamba watatekeleza yale ambayo sisi wa Kenya tunayataka. Tunahitaji Kenya bora, si bora Kenya tu, bali tunataka Kenya bora. Mimi ni Ismail Sema, tukutane Jumaa nyingine panapo majaliwa katika mahojiano na ukumbi wetu wa Mombasa. Mchana mwema.